The Chronicles of Narnia, Book 4, Prince Caspian, Chapters 1 to 4. It has been 1 year after Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy had the adventure of the Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe adventure. Here's what I felt. I mean, they were adults in Narnia, and like being adults in Narnia and being adults in England or somewhere else or where I live, an adult is an adult, and I think they would be very adultish when they go back to London. I think people would say that, oh, you're always acting like an adult. I hope they didn't say that. Kids have to be kids. Okay, so let's continue. So I told you it's been 1 year and they've been living in London, and they were, and it was the end of the summer vacation, and they didn't really feel like going back to school. And Lucy was going to boarding school the first time in her life. So yeah, they were waiting for the train to come. But they felt something magical. Something was pushing them toward nowhere. Wait, it wasn't nowhere. It was somewhere that they haven't been. At least that was what they thought. And when they got there, all the train station and the train, all of it was gone, and they were at the beach. They realized that this was Narnia at the first time when they got there. But it was a little bit weird because there weren't such bad ruins in Narnia when they were ruling, and they thought it was weird, and they thought it was some kind of place that they have never been. They decided to explore it after they played in the beach. And after that, they explored wherever they were, and they found something like a castle. And after some investigations, they decided to believe that this was Caerpervel, where they once ruled. And all the things were same, except it looks as if it's past at least 1,000 years. And they found an orchard too, an apple orchard. And they remembered that they had planted the orchard with Chief Mole, Lily Gloves. And they soon found the room that they put all the treasure chamber. And when they got there, they all found the gifts that they had gotten like I think maybe a decade ago or like 2 decades ago maybe. So yeah, they found it, except for Edmund, who didn't get it at all, and it was his fault. Anyway, let's not talk about that. And also, Susan had a bow and arrow, and she also had a horn, but the horn got missing. Then they got asleep. Well, they came out of the chamber, then in the ruins of Caerpervel, they slept. And of course, they woke up. And it was really dreadful because the worst thing of sleeping out of doors is that you wake up so dreadfully early. And when you wake, you have to get up because the ground is so hard that you're so uncomfortable. And it makes matters worse when there's nothing but apples for breakfast. And if you had nothing but apples for the dinner the night before, then after a while, then when they woke up, Edmund explained the whole thing, and he said he thought he knew what happened. Well, it was only a year ago since they left Narnia, but everything looks as if no one had lived in Caerpervel for hundreds of years. Well, it was that, however long they seem to have lived in Narnia. When they got back to the wardrobe, it seemed to have taken no time at all. So that meant that once you're out of Narnia, you have no idea how Narnian time is going. Like, why shouldn't hundreds and thousands of years have gone past in Narnia, while only 1 year has passed for them in England? Okay, so really, it was past 1,300 years. Okay, so that's the exact number. So it was like actually that. Okay, so this is based on my explanation. It's like lived in the Middle Ages, and now they're like in early modern. No, modern. Let's say modern. That's like modern is now, and this is based on like 1940 or so. Okay, so I think it's like they've lived in the Middle Ages, and it's now like 2030 or so. Okay, so this is my point of view. Anyway, then they noticed 2 men, and they looked like 2 soldiers. Then, so Susan shot an arrow to make them run away. Then, when they looked closer, they drew something, and it was very small. And it was a dwarf, a Narnian dwarf. And those 2 men didn't look like Narnians. So they rescued the dwarf, and the dwarf said thank you for rescuing him. Then they caught fish, and they ate that for breakfast. They asked the dwarf to tell him his story, and the dwarf agreed because it was him. It was them that saved him. So he said he was a messenger of Prince Caspian. So they didn't know who he was, so he told them the whole story. So the story was this. So the Prince Caspian was the heir to the throne of the Tamarins. The Tamarins were the new Narnians, like the new Narnians. And his uncle was the king for now. And the heir was him. That's what I told you. And okay, so Prince Caspian once told his uncle, which was the king, and his name was King Miraz. So Caspian once told King Miraz about the story of Narnia, which Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy were like, just as like they killed the witch and all of that. So King Miraz acted as if he didn't believe in these ridiculous stories, and he just said that there couldn't be 2 queens at once, and 2 kings, of course, too. And he said, "Don't say a word about it again." And of course, Prince Caspian was frightened. Alas, he didn't say so much, but he was a very little boy then, and if he was at least a little bit older, he should have known that he should know that King Miraz were saying in a tone of voice that it would be wiser to shut up than just to babble on, but he babbled on. So then, when King Miraz found out that Caspian's nurse told him about the story, he kicked him out. Caspian found this out yesterday, and they couldn't even say goodbye. This was so sad. And so, because of that, Caspian was in despair, and when he found out that another tutor was coming to him, he thought he would really dislike the tutor. But when the tutor was really there, he found out that the tutor was impossible to not like. That means he was so nice, and Caspian liked him very much. He was a man, and he was fat, and he was short, and very long gray beard. And one night, at it was 12 o'clock, so it was midnight. The tutor, which name was Dr. Cornelius, he told Caspian to come up to the high tower and see the 2 stars. So yeah, there they learned something about the stars. Then finally Dr. Cornelius told him the whole thing. It was that he wasn't a Telmarine. He was a dwarf. Well, he was half dwarf and half human. And it was that Mirage didn't actually know this. And he told Caspian that he couldn't tell this anyone. And he also told him that he was the rightful heir to Caspian the 10th, the heir of Caspian the 9th, and he ought to be king of Narnia. So he was shocked. He was shocked, and he was really happy to find a dwarf. Finally, a dwarf. He was so relieved to find one, at least. So yeah, so this is what happened. Okay, so I think this is the end of the Chronicles of Narnia, book 4, chapters 1 to 4. Thank you for listening. It was Orchid, and bye!